Hello, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Welcome to another edition of Infection Podcast. My name is Nick Craig. You can follow me on X at Nicholas M. Craig. We've got a new gig. We'll talk about that coming up in a little bit. Joining me, as always, Brian with an eye, Aldridge. What's going on, buddy?
Not too much. Of course, if you want to find me, you can find me at Boise Computer on X or at Brian Aldridge on Gab, Getter, Truth Social, and other places.
Brian, I'm back. They tried tamping down the Nick, which, you know, they got me for a period of time, but we're back. We're doing morning radio in the, I believe it's the 12th or 13th largest radio market in the country, Charlotte, North Carolina. So folks can check out the new morning show. It's called the Carolina Journal News Hour, and it's streams live on YouTube at 5 a.m. So if you were thinking to yourself, man, there's nothing I'd rather be doing at 5 o'clock besides in the morning besides watching Nick talk, well, now you're back in business. So the Carolina Journal News Hour.
To stay up rather than
you could choose to do that.
I'm 2 hours before you anyway, so I'm
you very much.
I might as well just stay up late.
You could do that. So you can find out more. Just go over to my Twitter. There's information on that there. Brian, I feel like we need to open with a company that does not pay our bills. Well, none of my bills have ever gotten paid. We know that you've been on the dole of Epic and your good buddy Tim Sweeney for years at this point. So anytime there's time to talk about the competition, I take solace in doing so because I don't get rich off of this. There was a huge Unity controversy earlier this year about their rates and the way that they were charging and a whole bunch of things.
Well, they put forward a new fee structure,
like a
that
royalty fee structure,
that would have ended up causing a lot of problems and this was a backdated one for those that don't remember. Like I think it was, they weren't just saying do this from here forward. It was actually backdated for like a whole version number or something. And so so people that had agreed to one license then were being forced into a whole nother license. So they reworked all that, stepped back and said, all right, you can keep a license, and then going forward, when you go to this new version, you have to accept the new license and then go from there.
Now, before we get into the news of today, there was huge backlash to this, like big time games and big time developers saying
some studios actually said they'd stop using Unity.
Yeah. A lot of people went to Godot, which is an open source video game engine. A lot of folks went over to the dark side and had to cozy up with Tim Sweeney with the Unreal Engine. There was. Now here's the thing. It's easy in the moment to go on Twitter if you're a small indie developer or a small studio and say, we've also got our pitchforks and we are running down towards the Unity headquarters with them. Outrage of all. The question is, and you know, people say they're never going to use Unity again. We're never going to do this again. They reverted that fee structure pretty quickly within like less than 2 weeks of the rollout because it was a disaster from the start. Yes, Godot is an alternative, but it's not Unity. It does not have the creature the reason that indie video games are as popular as they are now, and the reason that major studios don't have their own engines anymore, like the Frostbite engine, like the Crytek engine, like the H1Z1 engine, which Torchwood or whatever that engine was called. That was what you did. Torchlight. That's what you had to do, Brian. There was no engine. If you wanted to make a video game, you had to develop an entire program, graphics, physics, water, lighting, everything associated before you could even build the video game. The video game was like the easy part. You had to build this whole back end that controlled all of it. And so that's how it was up until when? 2010?
Yeah, just not very long ago. And all the engines that came up to that point were ones that were built for a game that they then took Crytek and CryEngine. I mean, that was for a specific game. Unreal Engine for Unreal, the game. And even Unity, I would say is different. That was one that was a pure game engine, from what I understand from the beginning. Godot or I assume that's how you pronounce it, Godot. I
Yeah,
always thought it
Godot.
was Godot, but Godot.
Oh.
That one is one where it's an open source project. Maybe somebody started it trying to make a game and then said, well, I'm not going to make this engine, or I'm not going to make this game.
This is too much work.
Roll it out as an open source project and let other people help me for free.
Yeah.
And that those kind of things happen, but most of them started because these, as you said, these studios they're making a game. They had to make an engine to be able to render something better than what other people were doing at the time, because there weren't options. So they'd make it from scratch, and then some of them said, hey, we could make this a little more universal, and then they sold it. And that's then now we've gotten 10 years down the road, other options, and looking at these things.
So I say all of that to go back to the point of, is Godot an alternative to Unity? Probably in some aspects. But the reason that Unity and Unreal are as popular as they are is because of the creature comforts and the ease of access and the usability. That's why people stopped and major companies have stopped developing their own internal engines at the tune of millions of dollars, by the way. You have to hire teams of programmers to build a video game engine.
Maintain.
It's not a simple, cheap, or easy, effective process. So the reason that people are in studios now are using these mainstream engines is because they're really freaking easy to use, and it's all built in. And if it's not built in, some random guy on GitHub has built the implementation that you're looking for, or you can buy features via the various marketplaces. So I don't say any of this to try and provide shade or cover to Unity. What they did earlier this year was the stupidest thing imaginable. Unreal's been, I don't even think, you and I have disagreed on this for a while. I don't believe they're competition to Unreal. I think they're a different level of engine. I think of it similar to the Xbox and the PlayStation are not competition to the Nintendo Switch and vice versa. Yes, they're both video game consoles, but they're like, you're not buying a Switch instead of an Xbox or PlayStation. Like, the game catalogs aren't similar. Like, it's just it's not a real good comparison.
They're aiming for that in the future, but I think now I think Unreal would love to be bigger in the mobile market, but I think right now, and I think I said this months ago, I don't think they're willing right now to put in the resources to turn around and try to compete with them with how the market is. And well, I mean, right now Unity owns mobile market, and so for them to come in, they'd have to do some pretty big changes, really push and focus on mobile features. And right now they're focusing on media and movies and doing live action things. And so I think that is different to where Unity doesn't seem to be going that direction, and I don't see them really pushing to become that competition. But I wouldn't be surprised if Unreal, once they feel like they own this one market, then transitions to try to go for mobile, because there's no reason they couldn't. I just think it just doesn't work as well as Unity for making those type of games.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, from what I understand, and I'm not a developer, I've played around with both of the engines, making a 2D game, which most mobile games, any sort of swipe game, any of those things, for the most part are 2D or some sort of the weird top down where it's kind of 3D with shading. These are all 2D experiences, and that is not the easiest thing to do in Unreal. So back to Unity and the disaster that they created earlier this year. Brian, it's really easy to say, I'm never going to use Unity again. I think it's a hard thing to actually do it, because at the end of the day, whether you like Unreal, whether you like Unity, whether you like these various engines, they provide and bring a lot to the market. And for small studios that are strapped for cash, strapped for resources, and strapped for time, I think you'd be a fool not to develop a game in one of those two engines. If not, you're going to spend so much time, so much money, and so much effort just to get to the base of where something like Unity is, to the base of where something like Unreal is. So, there's this concept that, Unity's done, right? Because of the backlash earlier this year, nobody's going to build a game on Unity. I call BS. I think when the rubber meets the road and you're starting a new project in Godot, never used it, I've played it. I've done enough with open source software as you have, Brian. It sounds really good. The features look pretty cool.
It's like GIMP versus Photoshop, and you're like, I am gonna switch to GIMP. I'm gonna do all my photo editing in GIMP, and then you start like, oh man, I want to do
nothing
this,
works as it's supposed to.
Doesn't quite do it the same way.
Exactly. So what is the news this week with our good friends over at Unity?
All right. So the big thing is that Unity is canceling its runtime fee. And this was one of the things I think from that original backlash that they really got. That's what I think where people were upset about.
Can you explain what a runtime fee is for in how it's relevant to a video game engine?
So, all right. So I'm going to make sure I do this right. So instead of the runtime fee, they're going to a per seat. A runtime fee pricing model. Let me see if I can get their exact what they were doing before. Because I think I have. So the last version they were introducing what they call the Unity runtime fee that's based upon each time a qualifying game is downloaded by an end user. So it wasn't based on how many people were purchasing the game, right? So which was an issue. This is an issue.
Well, it would
in
be
open source
purchasing
games, free games, free to play games, right?
It's not as often as they're playing it. It's if they purchase it, download it, right? Because
it's just if they download it. If it's a free to play game, they were wanting to charge per download.
Just per download. Okay.
It would have killed the ability to do a true free to play game, right? Because there are in some of these it's based on income and things like that. Sure. They wanted to bring in, it was based on the number of downloads, not running anything like that. But if you had a client that downloaded the game, they would then count that against you.
Interesting.
So that was the big one because there were certain games said, I can't run on Unity anymore because they were backdating this.
Yes.
So someone who made their game and released it under something that didn't have a runtime fee was then going to be forced into a runtime fee and then be charged per download of their game. There's some games that a ton of people have downloaded, but they don't run very often. I mean, Some of these free-to-play games, imagine how many kids have downloaded 30, 40, 50, 60, 100 free-to-play games on their account, but they only play one. These people would have had to have paid for those downloads.
Hundreds of thousands of dollars if you had a popular game. Potentially millions if you had a really popular game.
Yeah, and so now the company's going back to what they call the subscription model. So the Unity Personal will not only remain free, but it will also apply to all developers with an annual revenue or funding of $200K. Previously, it was $100K. So that's changed. The Made with Unity splash screen will become optional for Unity Personal games made with Unity 6. Unity Pro for customers making with over $200,000 in annual revenue. Pricing will increase by 8% to $2,200 a year per seat. And then Unity Enterprise for customers with over $25 million in annual revenue will be increased by 25%. With the end price remaining custom, that's something where they work out a special deal. So they're canceling that runtime fee and returning to what they call their core mission of democratizing game development.
So all of this sounds like good stuff. This all sounds like what they should have fixed earlier. They shouldn't have never broken in the first place. But, I remember at the time, and I think I'll make this point again, again, full disclosure, I'm not a developer. I know enough about the video game industry. I've got a good enough understanding of software. Unity and Unreal are in the business of volume, right? Because as you just noted, and has always been in the past prior to controversy earlier this year, Unity Personal was free, meaning that they, on the back end, have invested tens of millions of dollars, pay employees, or can you imagine what their biweekly payroll is, in the hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars, and you download the software, and you get to use it completely free, right? Now, that is not a sustainable business model. We've talked about this before. Brian, in our short time together over, however, I don't know how long we've been talking online. You can think of all of the various websites and softwares that we have used that were free. These apps were free. All these services were free for 3, 4, 5 years until what? The bank account is dry and the developer goes, turns out I can't give away my product for free. I need to start charging for it. So what do?
Yeah.
$2.99 a month, $120 a year, $60 a year, whatever the price may be. Free is not sustainable. Now, I'm not justifying Unity's boneheaded decision, but from a business standpoint, this model is not sustainable. You can't give away your product for free. And now you might say, oh, well, if the games aren't making any money, what's the cost to Unity? There is still a cost to Unity. And yes, it is software. I understand it's not like they're paying every time I open up Unity to play around with something, but they have fixed costs. They have employees that they still have to pay. They have buildings that they still have to pay rent on. They have utility bills that they still have to cover.
Servers running,
all of that stuff,
and running these things.
It's expensive to do. Now, is Unity making plenty of money? Yes, they are. But at the end of the day, a business's objective is to try and capitalize on their investment as much as they possibly can. Yeah. I understand what they were trying to do earlier this year. From a business standpoint, it makes sense what they were trying to do. The execution was sloppy and stupid. They should have announced this a year before it was going to happen with no backdating, with no retroactive anything, and then let people decide. I think you made the point. Cap the last version of Unity and say, from this version 6 or 7 or whatever version we're on now, this is the new model. You want to use the old Unity? You want to do all your old stuff in there and continue to update your game? Fantastic. We give you the seal of approval. If you want to use our new features, it's going to cost you no more free lunches, which is reasonable, I think. I don't think that's egregious. And the people will cry, oh, but it was always free, and I just assumed it was always going to be free. Well, then you're a fool. I mean, have you been on the internet 10 minutes?
It's not an open source project. So
no, it's a company. It's a massive company.
Like a freeware type of a scheme to sell this thing, allowing, some free usage and beyond. So here I found what at that time, so January 1st of this year is when they announced that one thing that kind of blew up in their faces. I have the amounts per install that they were wanting to charge in this license.
Before you do that, can I just say this? Brian, they have 6,700 employees.
Yeah, it's a big
This
company.
is not a small company. They have almost 7,000 people on their payroll.
And right now, the state of the gaming industry is affecting them heavily. When games don't sell, they are the ones who also pay because they are a percentage fee of all the money brought in by the industry. And look where the industry's been this year. No wonder January 1st, when there was the most layoffs in what I mean, my known lifetime in any kind of a tech industry like this, that's where they were coming. That's the decision they were coming into, right?
They're a volume business, the same way that Apple with their App Store is a volume business, the same way that Steam is a volume business. If people stop buying, if right now today nobody bought another game on Steam, Valve would be out of business pretty quickly. Because people are still using the servers. People are still downloading games that they own. Valve is still paying all of their employees, and they aren't getting a drop of money coming back into them because nobody's buying anything. They skim off the top, as all of these other companies do with essentially software as a subscription services. So, again, I think if you're going to talk about this and be outraged one way or the other, I think it's just important to have all of these factors out there. This is not some mom and pop company that's trying to bend you over the barrel. This is a major corporation with 7,000 employees that has that has a obligation to their investors to profit.
Yeah.
Back to your, I'm sorry to go on that tirade. Back to your point with what they were trying to do. And what, by the way, do you know when this was? Do you have a date on this?
January 1st. This is January 1st that they announced of this year.
Okay.
So Unity Personal and Unity Plus are those the free tiers that, almost free tiers at this point, because you had 1,000 or less in revenue in the last year, 200,000 less installs to date over the lifetime of the product and qualify for the tier. Now, what they added, here's the non-free part. Even if you have new installs, claimed that you had to pay this. Standard monthly rate for what, no matter what, when you're on that tier, is 20 cents per install you were supposed to pay.
Okay.
So 20 cents per person that installed your game, you were supposed to pay on the free tier. If you had over 200,000 people that installed your game life to date, for every one over that, it's 2 cents per install of every install on the free tier. And then if you go into Unity Pro, that's where you have 1 million in the last year, 1 million installs. But they were doing, for the first 100,000, 15 cents per installs. For the 100,000 to 500,000, it's 7.5 cents per install. 500,000 to 1 million installs is 3 cents per install, and then over 1 million is 2 cents per install. And then they have another one above that, which is, just a little bit less. But that adds up a lot on a free to play game that maybe isn't making any money. Then all of a sudden they have a monthly bill that adds up to quite a bit if it was truly a free game.
And I think it's important, and I think both sides of that are important. From the pricing model you just went over, that to me doesn't seem excessive.
Well,
now,
it depends on what you're providing as a product, right?
But,
I mean, to some that'd be like, oh, that's crazy. I can't do that. I'm not making any money. How do I pay
So
it?
I agree. If when you look at the past stuff, but if today I sat down and decided on January the 2nd of this year with these rules in place,
our product, right?
Damn it, I'm going to make a video game. I'm going to make a mobile app. What you just highlighted in the pricing and the cost doesn't seem excessive to me. They didn't go to everybody and say, hey, now it's $150,000. That's how you get into Unity. That seems like a realistic pricing model going forward, because at the end of the day, there is still cost associated to them to provide you that product for free.
In their justification at the time was those new services they just released on, there was all these live services and things that they had implemented that they wanted every person who used the product to have access to, which, in their minds justified, well, we need to charge a fee because this is costing us a lot of money to run all this. At the time, I think what I said is I really think they should have just spun it off as a plus version. If you have Unity Personal, have Unity Plus. Unity Plus is the version that's 20 cents per install, but also includes all those nice little features that you are wanting to put in all the products, and all the other tiers above that also include that. But have one that doesn't have all these things that cost you money on these free installs.
Yeah.
Right? That
could
what they
have been
should
a way
have
to
done at
handle
the time. And I think if they would have done that at the time, I think there wouldn't have been the uproar, and they probably could have gotten away, because people said, well, I could still get away. I'm just, but I can't use those extra features. Yeah, those cost money. Those are bonus features. Those aren't free. Right? That's what they could then tell them that.
So my question of the day for you, Mr. Aldridge, is Unity garbage forever? Are they permanently blacklisted in the video game industry, or was all of the outrage earlier this year, is everybody gonna kind of walk back with their head down and go, okay, you screwed up, but you fixed it now, and you guys offer a lot of really cool features that Godot and some of these other little projects don't offer, so we're back? Where do you assess the situation?
I haven't sensed any ill will from the development community since the change, right? The initial change, and then the reversal they did. And I think this is even going to make them happier, because I think that was going to make some people going forward stop using the product, because it just wouldn't have fit the model that they were going for anymore. And I think without these per installs, I think they realized that their competition isn't doing anything like this. That would have pushed people towards these open source projects and Unreal Engine more than anything else. And it would have, just because it was forcing it to. They have these costs, right? And that's what you were really getting at, is they feel like they need to somehow pay for them. They're not an open source project. How do you do that? Maybe they feel that the economy is going to recover enough to where they can, going forward from here, to offer free again. At the time it was getting really tough, and they almost stopped doing it. But I think, we're almost through the toughest of the times. Seems like things are slowing down a little bit as far as crazy, right?
Definitely.
We'll see if it'll fall totally on one. But I haven't seen any really negative. I remember seeing a lot at the time of people complaining and saying all these negative things about Unity, but that really, after they did their track back, I quit seeing anything negative or people saying they were going to quit. So I think that was a lot of talk at the time, because people don't want to go to Godot, right? If they don't have to. It's a it's a big transition. It's a lot of work.
Yeah, and it's it's the outrage of the month club, and it kind of you can put your fist up in the air with all of your fellow developers and battle back against the man. But I made this point back in January whenever we discussed this, and I'll make the same point again. If you truly want to have complete, exclusive, 100% control of your product, your service that you're developing, do not build it on Unity. Do not build it in Unreal. You are still beholden to these companies. You are still beholden to their future business and business practices and the ways that they have to do what they do to operate as a business. And that's kind of what, if I'm being honest, and you're muted, Brian, if I'm being honest, what kind of pisses me off more than anything else with this group is the moral outrage on using somebody else's product and with this idea, this concept that what you signed up for or the deal that you got at any point should be tattooed on your forehead and should be valid forever. I mean, it's the most entitled just nonsense that you can imagine. You know what? If you truly don't want to deal with potential changes in pricing and all that stuff, then you should use something like Godot. You should truly use something that's open source. That's why so many people use Linux.
If you want to keep building your own thing. Yeah. If you want to keep building your thing going forward and you want to be able to guarantee that a feature will not be taken away from you, open source is the way to go. Make 100%. A fork of it on GitHub. You then have that code, download a copy of it, save the license, and you know what? You have the legal. I have seen how they somehow reverse some things, and I don't know how that's possible in reversing a license. Very, very rare. But, grab your license, start from that point, and if you think you're a really good developer, start tuning your own version of that open source engine and make your own branch, right? Make that, rather than complaining about other people's, because that it's not an open source project. They own it. They have the right to make any of these changes, and all you can do, just like our discussions with Disney and whatever companies that have done things that morally, I find offensive or I feel like are bashing of me, I have the choice. Do I support those companies, Nike or whoever it is, Walmart? Do I support them as a person? And if you don't, then stop giving them money, right? Stop using their product. But if you can't even do that, you're not serious enough about not wanting to be with them anymore. Well, because it's going to be a lot of work to walk away from some of these products, to walk away from Unreal or to walk away from Unity.
It's an incredible amount of work. And so, maybe there were some developers that
Sorry,
learned
one more
from
thing
this.
I want to mention.
Yeah, please.
What about the assets, right? You purchase assets on an Unreal marketplace. A lot of times those assets are tied to using inside of Unreal. And
As they should be.
And so you can't turn around and use that in another product. If you already started your project, you don't just copy and say, let's open with Godot instead of Unreal today, and let's load this. It's not like Word, where an open source project opens the Word file.
LibreOffice, baby.
These are different. Yeah, it's going to be a start from scratch moment. You can kind of follow the same thoughts you were doing, but you're writing this from scratch in those new engines.
To me, there's kind of two ways forward with this. If you are somebody that truly does not want to be beholden to another company, and you don't want the possibility of something like this or really anything. I mean, who knows, Brian? Maybe the company's been running an Enron-style scam, and they're put out of business by federal regulators tomorrow. There is a more than 0% chance of something like that happening. I mean, so if you want to completely insulate yourself from that, then open source is the way to go. Don't use Unreal. Don't use Unity. Don't use anything that another company is developing. Use something on open source. If that is not your objective and not your goal, then shut up and deal with it. Just like everybody else does with every other product and every other service. Do you know how many apps, how many websites that I have used over the years that have either A, shut down just out of the blue. You go to it one day and there's a message on the home screen, sorry, we're closing. Or B, have decided to put vast majorities of their free features behind a paywall. But, and I can be outraged about it, Brian, but at the end of the day, if I like the service, I either need to pay for it, find an alternative, or shut the hell up. I mean, those are really my options.
And that's one reason it's important for, speaking of open source, to support those kind of things. So another option, if you're pissed off about whatever product you're using, to be able to have an option to walk away from it. Because there are some places, Steam, for example, 5 years ago, what was the Steam alternative? 10 years ago, what was the Steam alternative? Where would you go?
Probably some weird guy on some Linux forum making his alternative to Steam. I don't know.
But we've hit a point where there was a point in time where some games were only available on Steam. You would go buy the case with a disc in it, and there wouldn't be a disc. There would be a redeem code. It's like what they do with the Xbox. There are games that are not available anywhere other than Steam. Now that is truly, a monopoly in that way but the person who made the game chose to do it that way. So they're not a monopoly. That's that person's choice. You can get pissed off about it, but now we've got a lot more people really knocked the Epic store. That brought in some actual competition to the marketplace. I think the Game Pass is bringing, and Microsoft are now bringing good competition even to PC because you can install games on there. But 10 years ago, there was no real competition. And if you wanted to play certain games and you're like, but I'm not going to use Steam, you didn't have, then you weren't going to be playing that game at all. And that's your loss. And that's kind of a similar thing to here. If you don't like some of these things, these are private companies, you're going to deal with it or quit using the product. Everybody thinks they're entitled to things. And that's kind of like that Karen attitude, right?
Yeah.
Everybody thinks, well, if this exists, I deserve to have it. Right? Why shouldn't I have it? You have to give it to me. No. Yeah. Just like some young people, they get mad, about money and having the whole fiscal system that we have in the United States, but it's supposed to create incentive for you to try hard so that you can gain and have all the things that you want from putting in work and effort and, or could be investing. Like that's the mentality they're trying to create rather than I deserve this, give it to me. It's not fair. But I think that's a lot of the mentality that we have today that they're trying to figure out how to handle, a mentality that I don't think existed before, that now people get pissed if you don't give them stuff for free.
Yeah, and it's very much an entitled attitude because things have been available for so long for free.
Can we talk a little bit about their competition? Because there was an announcement here.
Gotta get the paycheck. Yep. What you got?
There was an announcement here just a couple days ago from Epic that they are changing their Unreal Marketplace to a new name and then something different.
Okay.
They're calling it Fab, and they announced it last year at GDC. Well, but you're fabricating things for multiple places. And they're calling it the successor to Unreal Engine Marketplace, Sketchfab, ArtStation Marketplace, and Quixel. So they're going to kind of build all that into one. And it's going to be your one-stop destination. Now, why would they be doing this? Do you have a guess on why they would be doing this right now?
Why they would be doing this?
Why would Epic be doing this right now? Like what? What would be the point? Like, why change it from Unreal Engine Marketplace?
Well,
like what are they pushing towards?
Well, they're pushing towards uniform. I mean, you just read it. It's going to be Unreal Engine Marketplace, Sketchfab, ArtStation Marketplace, and Quixel. They're trying to consolidate all of their services into probably one.
Fortnite is one. Remember the new Fortnite editor? Yep. That can use your Unreal Engine assets to make maps and things inside of Fortnite. But those kids don't really know what Unreal Engine is and Unreal Engine Marketplace. I think they want a unified place that everybody from all these now multiple products can come in and buy assets and have access to them in one unified place that doesn't say Unreal Engine Marketplace, because kids are going to be like, well, I went to the Unreal Engine Marketplace, and they want to say, I went on Fab and I bought this. They want it to be something that becomes something kids talk about, like they talked about buying skins. I'm going to make a map. Oh, I'm going to buy this and do this and put this in my map.
Yeah, and I think, I think there's a lot of truth to what you're saying, and I think there's also this. I think this shows that Unreal has continued plans for much larger expansion. They will probably continue to gobble up companies like ArtStation, like Sketchfab, like Quixel, and then when they gobble up the company, get it integrated, boom, snap your finger, it's available in Fab. So I mean if this is a company on the increase. If they were declining and being like,
they wouldn't be.
All right, we got maybe a little too much in front of our skis here. We got to slow this thing down. They would not be doing this. This is a company that's going to continue acquiring and adding additional services to Unreal Engine and that whole ecosystem by purchasing other companies. 100%. This is a company in increase.
Here's the biggest thing. Now, you don't see this on the title, but here's the biggest thing that I think is going to make a difference in games you play. Fab is going to be multi-engine, multi-platform support. Unreal Engine Marketplace was not. This will sell Unity and other assets. So people don't automatically, who have assets inside of Unreal Engine Marketplace, do not automatically transition over to Fab. You have to do it. Right now, they opened it up to the creators to get their projects transitioned over and accept all the new agreements and everything else. Then they're going to open up here pretty soon for people to go in and actually use it. So they're going to be moving all these people over, but they have to agree to have the option to release this for Unreal Engine for Unity. And then this is going to be integrated right into their editor to where they can access and implement and import, put into place all of these assets directly from the editor without having to download them, try to figure out how to import them.
Was that a thing you had to do in the past? You couldn't just straight integrate from the store?
Now, unless you were using like Quixel, there was a plugin you could use for certain things like this to import them in. You could create pipelines from Blender if you set your tools up just right to start moving things, but it wasn't out of the box like that. It was work that people had to do to create scripts or integrations to do it. This one will have more of these to where you can say, I want to, and you'll have a plugin in your program that will talk directly to this service and just move the files back and forth directly and say, I want to insert this into my level. It will then download it to your computer and then, have an asset there and then put it into the level. You can put it into the level. That was not a sweet, simple process before. It was a pain in the neck, especially, bringing in people and things like that. So, this also they talk about AI transparency. They can have a choice to have their products be trained in generative AI programs. That I'm sure has something in the future that's going to be really cool that they're doing with that. They have multiple license types or tiered pricing for standard licenses. So they can have different price structures for things of what you're purchasing. This is really cool. I mean, this is going to be, they have an image of it. I don't know if you want to look at that. Actually, which one are you in? Are you in their announcement?
Yes, I am.
Yeah. Is that scrolling thing? There we go. Yeah, that's it. So you can kind of see they have platforms, Unreal Engine, the Fortnite editor and Unity, and you can go browse ones that are available for those direct platforms.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. You'll
start seeing a lot of level stuff, which is what I really like pre-made assets for levels and stuff that was hard to get before.
People love to give Tim Sweeney and the Unreal folks a hard time, and Tim Sweeney's I kind of see him as kind of like an Elon Musk-esque figure. Everybody loves the product he has created, but a lot of people at the same time still hate him. That's so odd. It's you've got a bunch of bleeding heart liberals that love driving around their Tesla, but they believe that Elon Musk is somehow like the Antichrist or something. It's quite the paradox that they're living in, and I think it's very similar with Tim Sweeney and Epic. I mean, what he has done for the video game industry. What Fortnite, whether you play the game or not, when I say Fortnite, what that has done for the video game industry in bringing in a new generation of players that expect a certain level, a certain quality of game. And it's not all good. I think games like Fortnite have made this whole kind of skin economy thing what it is. Now, I don't like it, but I also don't partake in it. So to me, it's if you want to blow hundreds of thousands of dollars on skins, then who am I to tell you that's stupid or a bad idea? But he really has done a lot, and everybody just kind of hates him, and it's
I don't
frustrating. Get it. Well, but because he's a controversial figure, in that
he'll say things, he'll say his opinion without being ashamed of it, right?
100%. And we're I made the comparison to Musk. Yes, I made the comparison to Musk. Obviously, I don't think Tim Sweeney's overtly political. I haven't seen any of that stuff on his account. But he goes and takes Apple to court and wins. Yeah. And Apple's the enemy of all these people, and they still hate him. When you go to his Twitter account, it's just people trying to dunk on him all the time. So it's just it's really, really weird why there's this like such a weird love-hate relationship with people like Tim Sweeney.
Yeah. And that's the thing, is he has done incredible things for the video game industry. He's made an engine that is comparable to GTA's engine. I mean, out of the box. If people were willing to put it,
I mean, you could
programming
literally
is the time that it takes to make all those interactions and make it feel like it. But the engine has the capability of doing it if you put the time in.
Brian, it's so close to GTA that you could literally just download a bunch of assets, start an Indiegogo, and claim that you're going to make the largest video game that ever existed and raise hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Would say that.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's like somebody may or may not have done that in the past.
It's a.
What was the name of that stupid game?
Oh, I can't remember right now.
I'll find it.
I'd have to find it. And one thing I'm going to mention for Quixel, for people that use Quixel.
What is Quixel, by the way?
So those are those mega scans. So remember those scans that they were doing, super high resolution scans to where you could texture sand, rock. They'd go in and scan a stump, and it would just be one that you could zoom in super close to, and it looks ultra clear. Those are those mega scans that they were doing for making level design really quickly, and especially worked well for Unreal Engine 5 because you could have unlimited quality practically, and it worked perfectly for those. So when Fab launches, Quixel Megascans content will move from Quixel.com and Bridge to Fab and be available through Fab's website and Fab Unreal Engine and the UEFN integrations. In 2025, they're going to be charging for Quixel Megascans to support the ongoing improvements, curation, and development of new Megascans content. While we continue to offer some content for free, the majority of Megascans will no longer be available for free, unlimited use in Unreal Engine projects. I do mention this because I think you can go in and claim them or something. If you have that ability, go in and claim and grab your copy of the Megascans before 2025. So in the next, 4 months or something, 3 months, and get them on your license if that's something possible, because those will then be changed to ones you would have to pay for. So I did the same thing. There was that one for building mock-ups of buildings, for designing buildings and things like that. That was one where if you went in at the time and signed up for it, you get free license for life. And then, they start charging it later. So things like that I usually try to grab. But they're going to stop, charging for that through the normal Quixel.com and do a
Raw.
I don't know however they're going to do it on Fab. Yeah.
Raw was the name of the game.
Raw, that's right. That was the one where was it just in a warehouse?
Yeah. Yeah, back in 2019.
Yeah, that was the one that was in the warehouse.
This was their trailer. I'll just for context. This is the style of game that they claimed that they were going to be creating. And it turned out to be literally nothing more than a bunch of flipped
cutscenes,
Unreal asset graphics that they put up, and it was never intended to actually be played. It was a complete and total scam.
And this is the kind of stuff that you make in school when you're learning to become, a modeler and things like this.
Sure.
They have you make these cutscenes where, they're focusing on panning and what your lens is like and creating things like this. So it's probably a bunch of guys who got out of art school or out of their school, and this is what they can make. It's harder to do the programming of actually having this be something that, isn't just something you pre-program to have animation having characters walking around and seeming real. Like that's what GTA does. That's what makes it look so cool is they put in the time and the programming to do that. That's the hard part.
Yeah, the problem was that they created an Indiegogo, raised hundreds of thousands of dollars, and the game was never set to actually be or do anything.
They didn't seem to have any real programmers who could create it.
No.
They could create the levels. They could create, get the assets, but you have to put them together, and that's what game development is putting everything together. Because usually a big game studio, you're getting assets from one group of people, you're getting sound from one group of people, and the people making the game are the ones just taking all the pieces from everyone else and making them all stick together and flow. So.
And and I'm glad you bring that up. You say you get your models from somebody. You're not just getting your models from like one guy. You've got the people that are doing the concept art. Then you've got the people that are literally sketching it out. Then you've got the people that are rigging the animation so that when you move when the thing moves, it actually looks normal. Like there's so many levels to concept to end product. That's why I go back to what I was saying earlier about how Unity and Unreal have done so much for this industry where you don't have to have that, Brian. You don't have to have 3,000 people on staff to build a beautiful, immersive game. You can do it with a couple dozen people, which 15 years ago, impossible.
Yeah.
Didn't exist. I mean, look at a game like Minecraft. That was one guy. And when it first came out in 2006 or 2007, it sure as hell looked like it. It was a 8-bit block game where you walked around and placed things.
Yep.
That's what, and that was its own engine.
Yep.
So
like
that was in Java of all things.
Yeah. So you can run it on anything.
So you can run it on you could run it on your DVD player. So it'd be phenomenal. But that's what you could do with a small team then.
Yep.
Compared to now, a couple of friends can get together and put together a fun product. It's amazing.
One thing I'm wondering is, remember, Disney, they invested that $1.5 billion into Fortnite here earlier this year. And that's something I'm wondering how that's going to be tied into all this. Because I was thinking, well, maybe they'll put assets on Fab, but they're not going to let people they're not going to let people put these characters in the video game. So they're not going to put them in Fab. I assume they're going to create somewhere else where you can purchase skins to be able to be different Disney characters, right? But I'm surprised that they're not going to put that into the Unreal Engine Fortnite editor. Maybe they will, and not put it in the Unreal Engine editor so that they don't have to allow people to install it on a game they're making, but they can install them and put them in maps on Unreal Engine.
Yeah,
I think we'll probably start seeing a separation, and maybe that's where Fab is coming in to where they can start marketing them in the same place, but say, hey, this license goes here, this license goes there. Because right now under Unreal Engine Marketplace, there is no alternate license for them to sell something that you can put in a Unreal Engine map that can't be put into another game that you create in Unreal Engine. That would be a huge turnoff. There's no way Disney would allow that to happen. But that's my guess of where Fab is going to go, is allow you to purchase a license that you can use in their ecosystem that won't leave that ecosystem.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a smart move for them. And they're likely to have,
because people could create crazy maps around their games, Star Wars maps. You could create, whatever Disney universe you enjoy. They can sell assets to where you can make full maps. You could have fight outs on the Death Star, and sell all the assets to make the Death Star.
Yeah.
Right. You're not there, and it's not leaving Unreal Engine, so you don't have to, or it's not leaving Fortnite engine, whatever the Unreal Fortnite editor, and so you don't have to worry about licensing issues because that can't be played outside of their ecosystem legally. Right. It'll be kind of cool, but it'll be a way that all of their assets, you'll have like an asset for every single. Possibly, if you were wanting to make some illegal little video, you have an asset for every single Disney thing ever made.
Yeah.
At that point, they'll put them out there, and people will be able to pull them out of the files.
It's exciting to see what is going to be possible a lot of this stuff's happening right now, but really it's going to be interesting 10 years from now to see if there are still as many quote unquote big studios as there are right now, as the indie competition grows, and as AI I think is going to be a huge part of this. as smaller and smaller groups of people with limited resources are able to compete with multi-billion-dollar companies, that's going to be fascinating to watch and see unfold. Absolutely.
Yep. Do you care if we talk about this one other thing? I've got a you were, I think, looking at it, but this is something I wanted to talk about here really quick. It has to do with
the FCC chair. I mean, what the hell is this?
I thought it was kind of interesting because there's been a lot of talk about.
This is not
Lena Khan.
I was going to say, this is not the FTC chair, Lena Khan, who is a serial loser for every case she brings forward. This is the chair of the FCC, by the way, appointed by the administration. So this is an appointed person.
So they are, of course, there's been a lot of conflict lately with Starlink and the current government we have in the United States. For instance, when they wanted to do that whole plan to roll out internet to rural areas, they could have easily used Starlink, but because they don't like that he is a conservative or, is leaning towards conservatism right now, they don't want to use Starlink. So they would rather pay double the amount of money for remote internet for something that works half as well.
Double?
Rather whatever it ends up coming, double, triple. I'm trying to remember what there was.
Could drill. I mean, you're talking about so what's happened here?
Well, for the closest competition, it was still double for mediocre service.
Way more. I'm saying so. The issue you had here is the federal government, and I actually agree with this. Now, I don't think they should be playing any part in this, but they spent all this about rural internet rollout, which is a real thing. I mean, I know people that live in rural areas of North Carolina, Brian, that do not have access to high-speed internet. So the federal government and all these states, all of their grants for internet were based around physical cable, fiber, fiber to coax, DOCSIS stuff to your house, internet modems like that. And while that would have made sense 15 years ago, 10 years ago, when you've got a company like Starlink now that is providing as good of internet for the most part as some fiber or cable providers, it makes complete and total sense to not pay Spectrum to run hundreds of thousands of miles worth of backbone fiber through the middle of freaking nowhere so they can connect some random subdivision with 80 houses. It just doesn't make sense. Yet that's what the federal government's been doing. So what is the FTC chair now saying that she wants competition in?
Yeah, she's hinting that Starlink is a monopoly now. She said she doesn't feel comfortable. She takes issue with SpaceX controlling about 2/3 of the satellites in Earth orbit. Yeah, and the thing is they are making a huge investment to give the world satellite internet. The world satellite internet. They've been supplying your little war you've been running, helping so that you could have internet over there that you wouldn't have had government. They're supplying it to other countries than just the United States. I know you want to call them a monopoly. You want them to stop flying them over the United States? Is that
most
your goal?
Of Europe is on Starlink?
Yeah, you could serve every other nation in the world except for the United States. There's nothing stopping competition in this realm. People can get in there if they want to put in the funds, rent rocket ships, send satellites up to Earth's orbit. Like, you can do that. Nick and we could make that a hobby and start sending satellites up into space if we want to figure out, how it works. I mean, if we want to start doing that on the weekends, we could.
I've got plenty of free time. I'm just a lonely radio host.
Yeah.
So, I mean, maybe the government should give more money to Boeing. I'd like to see their attempt at it. They've done such a bang-up job with that stupid spacecraft they sent to the thing, and now they have to have Elon Musk come rescue them.
We don't like SpaceX. Could you please, NASA can't do it. Could you please come and rescue us from space?
Yeah.
Yeah, monopoly. You mean they're bigger than you are now, NASA? They're better than you are now,
It's not NASA, it's Boeing. It's the Boeing spacecraft which has been a government contract.
NASA. Yeah, they pretty much shut down NASA. That Boeing is now making, they're doing contracts for anything that's made. Boeing obviously is having some issues lately with their planes and things.
Planes, trains, automobiles, everything.
Yeah, everything's having issues. Of course, SpaceX, sending the biggest things ever put into space up in the sky lately. but they almost got 2 people home. It wasn't that nice from space in their little rocket.
It's so amazing to. I hate the federal government. It's just like a burning.
You're now
passion.
on the list.
They're just like when you see stories like this. Starlink is a monopoly. So what I read here is that the federal government is now going to pick a new company who's probably going to be the relative of some 80-year-old congressman or woman that is going to invest in an equivalent alternative to Starlink and funnel a bunch of my money to them to make a product that works.
Falsely prop them up, right?
To falsely prop them up to make a product that is worse, more expensive, and just in general, not what SpaceX is able to do with Starlink. And that's exactly how I read this. It's with everything that the federal government touches. Look at what's going on with the EV industry right now. They've spent they're spending trillions of dollars on an electric vehicle charging network across. Brian, they just announced a new a project here in North Carolina. It's federal money that's coming in. They're building an EV charger in a county that has 16 electrical vehicles registered. 16 in the cars in the entire county. And they're giving them $675,000 to build EV chargers. This is the kind of crap that the government does.
Yep.
Who's the guy that's who's the Virgin Galactic guy? I always forget it. Russell Brand.
He has his own, Russell Brand. That's it.
Russell Brand.
Yeah, who has his own island.
He's got his own island. He's got an equivalent to SpaceX. He's got
Richard Branson.
Richard Branson. I'm sorry. Yeah, Richard Branson. He's got his equivalent to SpaceX. He's got rockets that he can shoot off. Why is he not doing this? Probably because he doesn't want to.
Yeah, it's not his thing he's chasing.
No,
because on the 5th, Starlink had launched its 7,000th Starlink satellite, and they constitute roughly 2/3 of all active Earth satellites. He had a vision, and he's going for it, right? He's created something that no one else was doing. Now all of a sudden you have places like Verizon saying, well, okay, they announced they're going to do this, so we're going to start trying to create a satellite system. He created the need. He created it all, and now they're chasing under his, trying to chase and do what he's doing and offer some competition.
But let's also be clear
that right now it seems like he's a monopoly is because no one else wanted to and didn't realize that it was a priority and a real thing until now.
See, here's the thing. This is where you and I are right and also wrong. Satellite internet has existed for well over 2 decades.
Yeah,
it has, but it's geostationary. There are like 3 companies that provide the service, and I think they're all owned by HughesNet.
Super expensive.
I think they're all. I think HughesNet owns all of them, or Exceed owns. There's one company that owns all of them now. It's abysmal service. It still requires a phone line to do the other side of the internet because it's one way. So you download from the satellite at like terrible speeds, and then your upload is through a crappy twisted pair network that's being shut down by AT&T. Satellite internet has existed, and at any point over the last 20 years, any other company could have done better than HughesNet, better than Exceed, better than all of these companies. Nobody wanted to. Elon Musk did, and now
he put in the technology and the research to do it, right? That was the difference.
Invest their ground stations and the difference.
DirecTV had satellite internet that they offered, but it was what you said. You had to have a dial-up modem that you would send the signal back and you just receive fast. So you download fast, but then you'd upload at dial-up speed.
It's terrible. Yeah.
That's what they offered. And now you've got Starlink, who offers the ability on all flights through, certain
So that's what I was going to mention. Starting in 2025, United Airlines is partnering with SpaceX. They're dumping, what is the name of the company? GoGo, I think is the company that provides internet for them right now, and it's satellite based. They're dumping GoGo. Not only is SpaceX providing the internet, Brian, it's going to be free for all passengers. No more will you be paying $17 to connect your phone.
That was one
for
of my
a 2-hour flight.
perks.
It was. I used it a couple times, and then they changed how that worked.
Free internet on flights. So the internet's becoming an everything. And remember when they tried to push, internet is a right. All this is a right.
Well, they claimed it was a utility.
Yeah, and this is how you get close to that. Having it to where internet is an IoT of things. I mean, this is creating the IoT of things anywhere at all times.
And you know what I want? Nothing more is that the federal government back off. Because when the internet was originally founded, when you look at the original ARPANET, and yes, it was colleges and there was government money and all, so on and so forth. All the internet protocols, none of that stuff was done by the government or mandated by the government. That was all IOPP or L or whatever that group was that determined all of this stuff was going to be protocol. Any cabinet level position with this in this administration is completely and totally incompetent, circa Lena Khan and the Federal Trade Commission. So the FCC can go pound sand. They're useless. They don't do anything.
Yeah, and I think that, well, let's look at what possibly will happen next year. One thing Trump has said is if you're going to bring in a regulation, you have to get rid of, was it 10 or 5? I don't remember which one exactly. And if you're going to do that, so when you have government then saying, well, we're going to put a ton of regulations on satellite internet to try to run him out of business, well, you figure out how to get that multiple of the times of regulations you're going to remove to be able to put that many regulations on a company to try to push them out of business, like currently they would love to do to someone like Starlink,
which is insane.
I think that is going to be huge.
Like they're acting like, and I know we got to wrap, but like. It's like SpaceX and Elon Musk is out there like bombing small internet companies, like drones striking their rockets before they launch, cutting fiber links to their uplink stations. It's like Elon Musk is running around in the bushes with a big pair of snippers, destroying. There's nobody else that's even
freedom of speech. What a jerk!
There's nobody else even trying. Like, he's the only guy in the space that's doing it, and the government's like, this guy's running a freaking monopoly.
It's like he's got some guy who's running a race and he's all by himself. And they're like, you got to take that guy out.
100%.
Then you won't have a race. What are you talking about? You're going to take that guy out, but we need competition. But no one else entered the competition to run. What are you talking about? Well, that guy up front, we're taking him out. That's how they think. There's only one person in the race, and you want to take the one guy out. So you don't want anybody racing. Is what you're telling me.
Let's let AT&T and Verizon do it. That would be the solution, because those companies pad the pockets those companies pad the pockets of politicians in Washington D.C. So let AT&T and Verizon and T-Mobile and Sprint and all these other companies, let them handle it, because they donate a crap ton of money to politicians. I hate the federal government. My point rests. Brian, where can people find you online?
All right, if you want to find me at Boise Computer on X, or if you can get me at Brian Eldridge on GabGetter, Truth Social, and other places. Best way is you go to my blog, biteoftech.com. But if you go to our website, infectionpodcast.com, upper right-hand side, just join our server on Discord. That's the way you can get a hold of Nick or I directly. Also, we have 11 ARC servers running if you want to go play some of those. And then we have politics and everything else that you can discuss. If you want to watch the live show, you can do that through Twitch or YouTube. We also upload after the fact to Rumble if you want to watch on that platform. We have audio forms that you can listen to at the lower right-hand side. So whatever platform, device, place you like to listen, we upload those after the show is done, along with the show notes. So pick whatever's the most useful, and then you can make your way to that particular episode show notes, where there's that video and audio player built right into the page, and then links for everything we discussed throughout the show. So if you're wanting to follow along, maybe listen or watch, and then open up links and kind of look at what we're looking at the time, you're more than welcome to do that. If you want to support the show, we have a support menu option up top, or you can go to infectionpodcast.com/support.
Brian, my friend, greatly appreciated, and we will do it again next week. Folks, you can check me out daily, 5 to 6 a.m. Eastern Time on the Carolina Journal News Hour. Just do a search for that on YouTube. You'll catch either the live stream or the video on demand. You can find out more details on my X as well. That's at Nicholas M. Craig. That's going to do it for another episode of Infection. If you missed any portion of today's show, make sure you head on over to our website. It's infectionpodcast.com. Thank you so much for joining us, everybody. Have a great week. We'll see you next time.